I'm going to call the meeting to order. Welcome, everyone. Thank you, Ashley. And Ashley, before we go any further, if there's anybody participating virtually, can you update them on what they need to know?
Thank you. And through you, Mayor Eccles, before I begin, at any point, if you get disconnected, you can dial 1-647-558-0588 and enter the ID meeting, which is 891-5626-2480. Both members of council and staff have been briefed on the various features of the Zoom meeting software and will be raising their hands physically to speak. For members of the public, if you require any technical assistance, please send a chat message to myself, Ashley Noble, Communications Coordinator, and I will attempt to assist you. It should be noted for members of the public that this meeting is taking place across two meeting platforms, both on Zoom as well as being live streamed on YouTube. Public participation, if any, must be done through Zoom. It cannot be done through YouTube at this time.
Thank you, Ms. Noble. Ask any of the members in the committee, is there any declaration of peculiar interest or general nature thereof from anyone? Seeing none. If it does arise, it can be declared at any time. Part of the formal part, I have some announcements to make. I would like to remind everyone that the purpose of this public meeting is to receive input from the public. Every person who attends a statutory public meeting required under the Planning Act shall be given an opportunity to make representation in respect of the proposed bylaw. All submission materials for this application are available at the West Grey Municipal Office during regular business hours. Recent amendments to the Planning Act by the province now limit appeal rights on zoning bylaw amendment applications to the applicant, public bodies, or specific persons who made oral or written submissions to the municipality prior to a decision being made. Specified persons generally include energy, railroad, and telecommunications providers, as well as NAV Canada. This meeting is an essential part of the decision-making process. Feedback will be considered in the decision of the West Grey Council. An explanation of how the public or agency comments factored into this decision will be included in the notice of passing of the bylaw. Were changes made in the proposed bylaw after the holding of the public meeting, council will determine if any further notice will be given respecting the proposed bylaw. And the determination of council as to the giving of further notice is final and not subject to review in any court, no matter the extent of the change made in the proposed bylaw. I'm glad it's shorter now than it once was. That's the first time for reading those since the changes have been made to the Provincial Act. With that, I believe the clerk has some comments and notices as well too. Jamie, please.
Thank you, Mayor Eccles. Notice of this public meeting was circulated to the prescribed bodies posted on the subject property and mailed to all properties within 120 meters of the subject property on May 22nd, 2024. Anyone wishing to provide verbal comments at this public meeting is asked to sign the sign-in sheet located on the speaker's table. Personal information collected at this public meeting is collected under the authority of the Planning Act. The information collected will be used to complete the zoning bylaw amendment process and will form part of the public record. Questions about this collection should be addressed to me, the Director of Legislative Services / Clerk. If you wish to be notified of the decision of the Corporation of the Municipality of West Grey and the proposed zoning bylaw amendment, you must make a written request to the Municipality of West Grey, care of the Director of Legislative Services / Clerk.
Thank you, Jamie. And now a presentation from the Planning Department. Mr. Smith. David?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll ask you to bring up the presentation for the ZA06-2024 zoning amendment for DJ Land, Sadler Street. Thank you. And we'll go to the first picture that shows up, please. One more. Thank you. This part of the public meeting is in regards to the proposed zoning amendment before West Grey Council. There is no planning report being prepared or presented today. It is only for the purposes of the public meeting for you to hear a brief synopsis on the zoning and for you to hear comments from the public in regards to the zoning amendment. As council is well aware of, there's also the meeting for the subdivision itself, which will happen immediately after my presentation from the county. And I believe there's also presentation from the developers consultant from Dana Kiefer from Combine Engineering. The location of the proposed subdivision and the zoning is between Lambton Street and Sadler Street, Durham. Purpose of the application is to change the zoning on the subject lands from an R3 high-density residential to multiple R3 residential exceptions in order to permit the development. The effect of the application is to allow for the new subdivision and potential condominium complex comprised of 56 units, 3 semi-detached lots, which equals 6 units, 5 street townhouse lots with 4 units each of 20, and a potential 30-unit clustered townhouse condominium block. There will be a new street, Street A, connecting Lambton and Sadler to be built and transferred to West Gray, a new stormwater block to be created and transferred to West Gray, and parkland in this particular case would be satisfied via cash in lieu payment. There will be conditions of draft plan of subdivision approval prepared by the county and approved by the county going on. Go down to the next page, please. Current zoning on the property, you can see is the current West Gray official plan on the property is residential. Next, please. There are a couple of constraints on the property, in particular karst in this particular location. Next. There's also a small wellhead protection zone E constraint on the property. Next. The property, as I mentioned, is currently zoned R3, and the proposal is to apply a number of R3 exceptions to the property. Next. This is a little tough to see, obviously, but this is the draft layout for the subdivision. You can see at the top of the page, the top of the screen is Lambton Street East. At the bottom of the screen is Sadler Street. Running north-south would be a new Street A. Street A would be transferred to the municipality of West Gray. A new stormwater management block at the very bottom, block 28 in the bottom left-hand corner to be transferred to the municipality of West Gray. And then off to the right-hand side, the top part, whatever it is, would be a proposed condominium development. Next. We have been taking a look, as I said, at the zoning. This part of the meeting is only about the zoning. We prepared and have been in discussions with the developer and with COBIDE regarding a draft schedule for the subdivision, and that will be presented at a further meeting to council. But here we can see a number of different R3s on the property and an OS open space block proposed for the stormwater management block. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Smith. And as we said, do we have somebody from the county? Please. Yes.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Becky Hillier. I'm the senior planner with Gray County. If we wouldn't mind bringing up the presentation that I sent along, that would be great. Yeah, David did a great job presenting, so I'm going to try to make this short and sweet so we're not hearing the same thing over and over. But as was mentioned, there's a couple of pieces to this proposal. One is the zoning application, which David had mentioned, and so that kind of looks at the use of the property and some of the setbacks and those types of things. And then there's also the subdivision component. And so the county is the decision-making authority for the subdivision piece. And so that looks at sort of the comprehensive development of the site and making sure that the site has all the things that it needs to make sure that, it's a good development and that it will, make good use of the infrastructure that's available in the area and will serve future and surrounding residents well. So next slide. So just in terms of the background, the county has received a draft plan of subdivision. It's known as 42T-2024-02. We're referring to it as the Sadler Street subdivision. And as David mentioned, the municipality is processing a concurrent zoning application. The subject lands are designated as primary settlement area within Schedule A of the county's official plan, and it's located in the town of Durham and West Gray. And so the primary settlement area is essentially where we want to see growth and development happening from the county's perspective. It's areas where there's access to full municipal sewer services and water services. And so there's good potential there to make sure we're accommodating people and growth that we're seeing. Subject lands are currently vacant and they consist of 2 separate properties totaling about 2.57 hectares in size. The northern portion of the property is wooded, and some tree removal is proposed to facilitate the development. It's also been identified that there is a historic train corridor that had gone through the property at one point in the past. The surrounding uses include a low density residential and institutional uses. So there is the existing Rockwood Terrace site down the road. There's a new proposed Rockwood Terrace site just across Sadler Street. There's a public school nearby. To the south, there's some municipal parklands to the north and kind of that river area with the tennis courts and basketball courts. And then there is that extractive industrial operation being the gravel pit to the east. The next slide. So that just kind of gives you a sense there of where the lands are located again and some of those surrounding uses. Next slide. So in terms of what is proposed, as David said, there's a variety of different housing types proposed, 56 in total. There's some semi-detached units. There are some townhouse units. And then there's also a 30-unit vacant land condominium small home development block. So that's kind of a jumble, a bit of a mouthful, but essentially it means that one portion of the development is going to consist or is going to be under condo ownership or run by a condo corporation. And perhaps Dana, who's going to be speaking next, can explain more, but my understanding is that some of those units that will be provided will be small in nature, maybe only having 1 to 2 bedrooms, and would accommodate kind of more entry-level homeowners or those looking to downsize and folks of that type. There's also a stormwater management block and internal roads that are proposed. Next slide. Again, so there's the concept plan. So it's that portion that's kind of jutting out to the right there. That is the small home development as mentioned. So in terms of supporting material, a number of studies have been undertaken to support this work. As is standard for all new subdivision applications, a stage 1 and 2 archaeological assessment has been done, which has been reviewed by some of our Indigenous partners. An environmental impact study has been undertaken, a functional servicing report, a planning justification report, a stormwater report, and a traffic impact study have been done. Next slide. And then in terms of agency comments received to date, there hasn't been a significant amount. Saugeen Valley Conservation Authority did acknowledge that there was this karst constraint on the property. I'm not sure if karst is something that anyone knows too much about here. I didn't know about it before I became a planner, but it's essentially a topographic type of rock where there might be fractures or cracks within the rock. And so it's something from a geotechnical perspective that the Conservation Authority has just decided warrants further investigation, but something that can likely be done at a draft approval stage. Hydro One has no concerns. And then there were just some general comments from Bell Canada about requiring a servicing easement. Grey County Planning Ecology staff have reviewed the environmental impact study. They have generally no concerns provided that the mitigation measures recommended within the plan are adopted. Grey County Transportation Services has also reviewed the proposal and has accepted the recommendations of the traffic impact study, acknowledging that Lambton Street is a county road. So in terms of next steps, so again, a decision won't be made today. But we will continue to undertake detailed review of the material that's been submitted. We're happy to take and hear everybody's comments today and respond to them as best as we can. If there's anything we can't answer today, we're certainly happy to take that back and to make sure that it's taken into account in our ongoing discussions. We'll probably be asking for some sort of revisions to the plans or to the studies if required. We have undertaken a peer review of some of the studies, and that's kind of given us a bit more in-depth technical knowledge about some of the recommendations put forward. After that, once everything is kind of packaged and we're happy with it, the county would offer a decision on the subdivision application, which would be followed probably by West Gray making a decision on the zoning application. And that's everything today.
Thank you very much, Becky. And I think we have another presentation by Ms. Kiefer. Dana.
Good afternoon, Council. My name is Dana Kiefer, Senior Development Planner with Cobite Engineering. Dave and Becky have probably stolen a lot of my thunder, so I'm just going to skirt through the stuff we've already talked about fairly quickly here. So next slide. L-shaped parcel with frontage on Sadler and Lambton Street East in a residential neighborhood. So neighbors fronting Rock Street to the west, some neighbors fronting Concession 1 to the east. Well situated in the town of Durham to take to well-situated amenity spaces like the tennis court, conservation area, and curling club. Next slide, please. 56 units proposed, a new municipal street that's going to extend and connect across Lambton for George Street East, a plan of subdivision with 70 detached and fourplexes, and then a future 30-unit vacant land condominium, small home development, and then a lot addition to the neighbor and a stormwater management pond. Next slide, please. As Becky mentioned, we have submitted several studies, environmental impact study, archaeological study, traffic impact study, stormwater management, functional servicing report, and a planning justification report were completed. Next slide, please. Site-specific reductions are requested for the zoning, including a front yard of 6 meters, lot-specific reductions on the north side of the development to facilitate the angle of that George Street extension. So you can see how it comes in at a slight angle. That's requiring us to do some site-specific reductions for the lots. 2% decrease in lot area. We're asking to permit parking in the front yard for the condo development. And then, because those units won't have garages likely, and then permit a reduced setback between condo units. Next slide, please. So the highlight reel for this one, the proposed new road aligns with the existing George Street East to connect through to Sadler Street. This will continue the existing road grid pattern in Durham, so everything will line up kind of nicely there. The subject lands are highly accessible to nearby parkland. A small home development is proposed. Each unit is proposed to be approximately 742 square feet. So both 1 and 2 bedroom units will likely be offered. This is going to offer a new product into the Durham housing market and a little bit of variety there. And then finally, the development concept represents a project that will help fulfill the municipalities and counties' intensification goals. We're taking an infill site that's within Durham that currently has no residential units on it and taking it to 56. So that is a nice little perk of a infill site. That concludes my presentation. I'm very happy to answer any questions that council has, though. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I think what we'll go to is any comments, questions, thoughts from members of the public. And in this, I would ask you to use the podium or table here and the microphone and identify yourself for the record. Anybody want to speak up? Please.
Hi, thanks. I live on Rock Street and my property backs onto the proposed area. And I'm really glad to hear that there's some like entry level housing coming into the area. I know there's a great need for it. My concern for myself is that I'm living in a pretty peaceful spot right now. And the proposal is going to bring, I'm guessing, years of dust and noise and lights. And I'm curious about what plans there might be to block that from where I live. And how far what the distance there is proposed from, I'm assuming there would be a large fence built. So I'd like to hear about that, what plans there are proposed to have a fence. And that's about it.
Could you just state your name for the record there?
My name is Katie Humble.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Did somebody want to, take that down and did you want to answer that at this point in time, Dana, or? Yeah, no, it's up to yourself. You want to take that into, get your secretary there beside you to write those out.
Hello, my name is Rick Sharples. I live at 171 Rock Street. The diagram shows it's got a pond area at close to the road at Sadler Street. If I can get, is it possible to bring up the diagrams of the presentation, the first presentation? Is that possible? I can show you better on there what I'm looking at.
It's lot number 28, sorry. Yeah.
Keep going, keep going along, keep going. Whoa, stop. Right there, where you can see where the top diagram, you can see where the 4 houses are coming across onto Sadler Street, the existing homes. My lot is the first one going off of Rock Street. What I want to know is what's going to be behind my house. Is that going to be a semi or is that going to be the pond? My concern is mosquitoes and stuff like this. We had a pond put in for housing in Cookstown where I was, and we were getting eaten alive.
Well, thank you, Rick, and take that down here. I think what the applicant and or the applicant's planner. Yeah, you can see it better right there. Want to take these questions down and kind of go through them when we have them. Just a little bit more right there, Ashley. Yes. Will be that stormwater management. Thank you, Rick. Anyone else have in public? Dix? Should be the gray button. You've got it. There you are.
Okay, for the record, Janice and Matthew Dick, we live at 682 Sadler Street. So we back onto where the proposed condo development is. We have a number of significant concerns. The first of which is drainage and the potential for overland flooding. Shown on neither the plan contained in the functional servicing report prepared by COBUD or the preliminary grading plan? Are there any current elevations outside of the proposed development property? And the grading within the proposed development does not show the grading of the rail trail and the lands immediately surrounding it. There are some ditches there that were not picked up in that grading. Based on visual elevations, there are several areas along the east boundary that are lower in elevation just beyond the property line. These would be along the properties found on the plan that includes our property. The preliminary grading plan shows, based on elevation, that runoff water from the lands encompassing units 17 through 30 would be directed towards the rear property line. We feel that the shallow swale proposed in the grading plan is insufficient to handle the amount of surface runoff given a heavy storm. Also of note, the lands to the south of the development along the decommissioned rail line were stripped to bedrock and have very poor drainage, with some pooling of water in the spring after heavy rains. With the added runoff from the development, we are concerned that there will be more water than a shallow swale can handle, and the water will flood across our property. We ask that before this development moves forward, that the grading plan be updated with external property elevations and that additional flood prevention be considered. Second, and quite importantly, when you're dealing with your change in zoning, disturbance of the retired rail bed, potential well water contamination, both residential wells and municipal. An area of the proposed development site along the southerly limits of Block 27 and extending northerly 20 meters are former railway lands. This also extends over lots 13, 15, 1, 3, and the northerly portion of Street A. Historic rail lands and the ground beneath them tend to have high levels of contamination, particularly hydrocarbons, arsenic, creosote from rail ties. When these grounds are disturbed, these contaminants can be released into the environment and the water, both surface and groundwater. This site, and in particular this area of the site, is of a karst topography. Karst topography areas are earmarked by macro fissures in the limestone, often leading directly into groundwater sources. Although a scoped environmental impact study was performed, we are not seeing any record of site condition study for contaminants having been completed. This should have been performed at the time when the zoning change from natural environment to A3 was done several years ago. This is especially pertinent as the rail bed should have been classed as industrial, not natural environment at that time. There are a number of private wells adjacent to the site, and the area is within the Grey County wellhead protection areas. Disturbance of the site overburden could risk contamination of both surface water, the Saugeen River, and groundwater sources. We request that prior to this development going forward, that there be a record of site condition study with test wells performed and a contamination containment plan put into place. If this development moves forward, we request that there also be ongoing well and groundwater testing for water quality as it relates to contaminants and sediment. Structural damage due to ground vibrations during construction. The residents along Sadler Street East, south of the development area, are built on bedrock, to the point that some areas of our basement were left unexcavated due to the presence of solid rock. When the residence located at the corner of Lambton and Concession 1 was built, we felt ground vibrations when they were using mechanical jackhammers to break up the rock for the foundation. At this time, we also noted cracks forming in the one corner of our house. Once excavation was completed, these cracks have remained unchanged and no new ones have developed. This rock drilling was more than 150 meters from our home. This development is proposing water and sewer depths of at least 2 to 3 meters below ground. This infrastructure will require large amounts of solid debris, rock removal to place. This rock excavation will be within 30 meters of our house. How can we be assured that this drilling and excavation of solid rock is not going to further damage our foundation and the structure of our house? Trees and vegetation. The area of the development to the south of the rail line is mature mixed deciduous and coniferous bush, including large number of pine, spruce, black walnut, and maple. Many of these trees are in excess of 15 meters, 35 feet. The northern portions of the adjoining property also share in this type of tree cover. For development purposes, it would appear that all of the trees within the property south of the former rail line and the majority of those trees to the north are being removed. This is going to create a wind hazard for the trees and the structures on the property along the south line of the proposed development. The trees south of the rail line have never been exposed to unbuffeted northwest winds. The cedar bush to the north has always acted as a windbreak. Due to the shallow topsoil and poor root infiltration due to the bedrock, these trees have very shallow root structure and poor wind stability. This creates a hazard situation both for us as homeowners and a liability situation if a tree were to topple onto the development property. I'm missing a page here. My apologies. We request further consultation on this issue with the town and the developer prior to any tree removal or construction so that we can chart a way forward. Land use, type, and zoning. Our opinion is that this is a poor location for an accessible condominium development. Accessible housing units within a community should be placed in an area where services are readily at hand, ideally within short walking distances to services and shopping. From the end of the condominiums, you're over a 1 kilometer walk to downtown and even further to the nearest grocery store. This is not a walkable distance for a person with disabilities or the elderly. This will add increased strain and cost to our county-funded accessible transportation vehicles so that these residents can use these services. If development is to happen on this land, a more logical use would be single-family homes that can accommodate families with multiple children or multiple generational living situations. These lands are within easy walking distance of both school and daycare facilities. Why would we not take advantage of this to grow families within our community? This community needs homes for families, even more so than single bedroom units, especially within a school zone. Privacy and security. We have concerns regarding the privacy and security of our property with this development. These condo units sit at an elevation much greater than our backyard, with their rear patios a clear view into our home. We purchased our property in part due to the privacy of the rear treat area. This area, at the time when we purchased, was zoned as natural area and was not eligible for residential development because it was karst land and not suitable for building on. Additionally, we have concerns that if there's not permanent fencing, that there will be nothing to stop residents from accessing our property. We request that there is a solid wood fence installed with a height of 2.5 meters. We understand the need for development within the town of Durham. However, we don't believe the potential of damage and devaluation to the neighboring properties has been considered by the developer. Without all this information answered and concerns addressed, we cannot have any opinion other than opposition to this development.
A couple other questions here, like, I'm not 100% sure about this condominium. Like, what is a condominium style home? Like, is it a single story? Is it on a slab? Is there basements being dug? Yeah, like that's because if there's basements being dug, then obviously there's more rock and that sort of stuff being done. And are these condominiums strictly for rent, or are they being purchased, or? Yeah, we're just looking for more information about the development. So. Thank you.
We'll be leaving copies of this paperwork for you to include in the applications.
Thank you, Janice. Anyone else? Any other comments? There's a number of questions there, probably for the applicant. Travis, Dana? You can tag team whichever way you want.
Okay, so again, Dana Kiefer, planner with COBIDE, and with me is Travis Burnside, engineer. So I can answer a couple of the questions that were posed. So vacant land condominium is currently proposed. That is not before council or county council at this point. That's just the eventual plan. So a condo is an ownership style. So what it means is that you own what's called a unit. And so you can own a house in it, you can own the inside of the house, you can own the outside of the house, you can own grass in it. And then you also own part of what's called common elements. So in this case, the common elements would include the road that comes into it, that will be owned by all unit owners. And then in this case, this is a vacant land. So you also own your unit will include your front yard and your backyard, as well as the outside and inside of your unit. So that is proposed. I think at this point, there has not been firm building plans decided on whether or not there's going to be basement or there's going to be slab on grade. We are very preliminary in this process, right? So we will have to get through the zoning and get through the subdivision and then do the vacant land condo after that, because that lot in the subdivision needs to be created for us in order to progress that part of the application. In terms of a record of site condition, that will be a requirement for draft plan approval. The county has already identified that as being a requirement, so that will be forthcoming. A geotech is the same. Saugeen Valley has identified that as being a requirement for a draft plan approval, so that will be also forthcoming. So what basically happens is that goes on as a condition, and the developer has to do those things in order to get their subdivision final approved. We'll note in terms of mosquitoes, the stormwater management pond will be dry, so there will not be standing water in it. It is just for in the event of a flood, that there is room there for the water to go in it. There's not going to be standing water on any given day. Well water contamination, record site condition usually includes soil sampling. So if there is found to be a problem there, that will be dealt with in order to get a record of site condition. Either that is contained or it is removed from the site. That is all done within the record of site condition process. I think that's everything for you. Did you want to cover the drainage stuff?
Sure. All right. Yeah, so we've prepared a preliminary grading and drainage plan to show the general intent of the drainage from the site. Now, this is the first step in kind of a long process. So once the zoning's approved, it moves to detailed design and the municipality reviews it. It's also being peer reviewed. So there's a number of steps and all the drainage will be addressed so that there is no flooding of off-site properties. So those swales and the storm sewer system get designed to convey that water away from neighboring lots and to the stormwater pond. Yeah, and I guess, fencing is another one that'll get dealt with as part of the final approval process in accordance with the municipal bylaws of where fencing is required based on land use types. And I guess and to continue with another note here about the structural damage. If that is a concern, if you do have cracking, we can look at doing a precondition survey to kind of monitor what's there, and then they can, if recommended, put like vibration sensors in that are part of that precondition survey to check if there's vibrations kind of transferring from the site to your property.
Okay. Anything further? Rick, could you use one of the microphones? Well, no, I would really like you to come there. I know you can talk loud. I've been at no, I won't go there. Thanks, Rick.
I was just gonna say, I realize what these people are saying and I'm not arguing. I'm not that familiar with this kind of stuff, but my own home where my brother and I live, we've got a crawl space, 6 feet in one corner and 2 feet in the other. We're on the same rock going down Rock Street. I just want to make sure, as this gentleman, as this couple over here said, that we're all going to be okay going down the street. The same concern going down the other way.
Yes. Okay, take a note. Any other? Ashley, I haven't asked, is there anybody online at this point in time? Any other comments? Thoughts? There's a number of questions there. I think Dana and Travis did a good job of addressing those. Okay. Next step. Mr. Clerk? That's it. Yeah. That's what you're supposed to say. Tell me that.
Through your miracles, as a next step, I anticipate planning staff will bring forward in the future a planning recommendation report on the zoning amendment piece for council's consideration at that time.
Okay. Then I would suggest that that's all that we have for today. Thank you very much, everyone. And with that, all business concluded. I think we can adjourn the public meeting. Thanks, everybody, for your participation, and there will be more information certainly coming forward as this process, but this is the initial start of the process. There may be, there wouldn't be a public meeting on the zone. I'm going to look towards, there'll be public access as the process moves forward, but Mr. Smith?
Let's, the word mayor's words, public access, but the word public meeting. This is the legally required public meeting where you present it to council, your various concerns. Council will come back, as the clerk has mentioned, at some point in the, I think the developer's hoping near future, to hear a planning report from myself on the various aspects of the zoning. And we'll talk with the clerk about whether or not we give some kind of notice of that. Again, we'll have that discussion with the clerk. Becky, would you like to speak to about the county process?
Hey, yes, thanks everybody for your great comments today. Those were excellent. So usually how we work as a next step is I would provide sort of all of my comments that I have to date, and usually we would work with Westgray to compile any comments that Westgray has, as well as all the comments that we've received here today. And we'd kind of neatly package everything up and then give them back to the applicants. And it's sort of a comment matrix of our comments and then the applicant's response. And so usually what I would do, just for public accountability and transparency purposes, is once that has kind of been finalized, we would post that onto the county website as well. So you have access to that and to see how your comments have been interpreted and responded to by the applicants. Yes, so there's a few factors there. So the question was, if everything goes well, when can we expect to build? So there's a few considerations there. So based on kind of the comments that we receive, there's a question of kind of when will a decision be made on the draft plan piece. And so there's probably a few revisions and things that will need to be made. So, maybe within the next couple of months, we can get to making a decision depending on kind of how fast they are to kind of make any revisions. And then there are, as part of the draft plan approval process, there's a number of conditions that will need to be addressed. So as Travis mentioned, once the applicants have received approval kind of by concept, there's still a lot of detailed design work that needs to happen in the background, and that can take time. Something that also hasn't been noted here today is I understand that West Gray does have some deficiencies in servicing availability that the municipality is looking to address. So that will potentially impact development timelines as well. So I don't know, Dana, do you have kind of a ballpark of when you're hoping to get this started?
I'd probably guesstimate 18 months. We have a couple like hoops to jump through. That could be shorter, it could be longer, but that's going to be the range, I would say. Thank you. Through you, Mayor.
Okay. Thank you, Becky. Okay. That said, I think we are complete here today. We've got some, as Becky has said and David said, a number of good comments and stuff to be addressed by the local residents. And we look forward to continuing on to the work about our portion of satisfying the province on finding affordable housing and our part on solving the housing issue in Ontario. We can't all do it. We can't do it all in West Gray, but we'll do better than our portion of it, as we always do. Good. Thank you, everybody, and have a great day.